very, very important program that intends to address violence and corruption together. And we are trying to do this by training advocates, by empowering them with knowledge, with the knowledge on peace and conflict resolution. We are empowering them with knowledge for negotiation and conflict management. We're empowering them with the knowledge on ethics and corruption, because corruption is a direct outcome of unethical conduct. So we are empowering them by training them to understand what is expected of them in the society with regards to personal ethics, environmental ethics, social ethics, and so much more. So that is what the Peace and Ethics program is all about. So in this next slide, I'm just going to go into the next slide. You would see I'm asking who is a peace and ethics advocate precisely. What is advocacy? So advocacy means getting support from another person to help you express your views and wishes and help you understand and help you stand up for your rights. Someone who helps you in this way is called your advocate. What does an advocate do? The role of an advocate depends on your situation and the support you want. So as an advocate, you are an instrument of change. You are a tool of impact, of positive impact. You are there to help others. So we are going to train you with the skills that you need to help the people around you. And if you are a change, if you are a good person, you are different, you will have the power to influence other people. We are going to show you the skills. We're going to show you how to do it, the power of convincing. You are going to do this in your communities. You are going to promote peace, peaceful conduct. You are going to promote zero tolerance for violence. You are going to promote zero tolerance for accepting bribery or corrupt practices. And you will teach the people coming behind you, the younger ones. You are going to tell your friends, you are going to tell your family members, you are going to tell your neighbors, your colleagues, you are going to tell every single person around you about what you're doing. You are going to be an example. So you are going to lead by example. So you are going to be a reflection of what you want to see. You cannot expect the world to be a perfect place and you are not good. So whatever you advocate, you have to behave it. You have to act it. So advocacy, this is what advocacy is all about. So like I said, you are an instrument of positive impact. So you are going to be trained on diversity and inclusion. And what is diversity and inclusion? This is the heartbeat of human rights laws. Diversity and inclusion, non-discrimination. When after the Second World War, and countries came together to enact the United Nations General Assembly, the United Nations, not even the General Assembly, the United Nations, the main reason why they wanted to do this is because of the number of deaths that has occurred. Wars that have no respect for humanity. People have died in millions, and they were sure that this cannot repeat itself. And what causes war? Misunderstanding. And what causes misunderstanding? Your inability to accommodate other people's differences, other people's religion, other people's tribe, other people's culture, other people's perspective, other people's creeds, your inability to accommodate and to understand that they are different from you, but that doesn't make them less of a people. Their ethnicity, their race, their religion, their gender, their disability, all these things together are the things that you call human diversity. We are different, but this doesn't make us different. We are all humans before we are different. So humanity first. So we need you to understand that humanity comes first and foremost before anything else. And I am the one that will personally take you on diversity and inclusion training. It's going to be a very rigorous training, and I'm going to dwell in as deep as I can to make you understand the reason why diversity and inclusion is important and discrimination is deeply frowned upon. And then you're going to be trained on peace. You are going to be trained on conflict resolution, negotiation. My colleagues are going to take you on this. His Excellency Zachary Gimba Hassan and Ms. Janet Ojunugwa are going to take you on peace. And they are our trained, certified professionals that will do this over a period of a day or two, depending on the timetable. And then we have the ethics and corruption. Again, ethics, I will personally take you for ethics. And a colleague of mine is going to take you on corruption. And basically, corruption is the result of unethical conduct. So I'm going to begin with ethics by making you understand precisely what ethics is. How can you actually be an ethical person? Because there is a knowledge gap between wanting to be ethical and actually being ethical. You need to be able to understand precisely what is the right thing to do. You need to be in a position to make up your mind in complex ethical dilemmas and do the right thing regardless of whether it's going to cost you or cost someone very close to you, or it's going to affect your monetary gain. So you have to become ethical for you to be able to say no to bribery and corruption. A colleague of mine is going to train you on zero violence. A team actually of about 4 people are going to train you on zero violence. They're going to do this over a couple of days. And you will understand this, you'll get all the dates as time goes on. And then there is a very interesting trainer on drug abuse that is actually a pilot, and he is going to train you on preventive measures on substance abuse, how to say no to peer pressure, why you cannot make a mistake and try drugs even once, how to get help if you are an abuser. And he's going to go on really deep because he is quite experienced in this field. So after all of this, you are a human rights defender. You will get certifications on human rights. So I'm just going to explain a little bit on the peace. I'm not going to dig in too deep because this is the field of my professional colleagues that are very vast in this area. So I'm just going to make you understand by defining what peace building is, because that is the process we are trying to execute. Peace building is an activity that aims to resolve injustice in non-violent ways and to transform the cultural and structural conditions that generate deadly or destructive conflict. It revolves around developing constructive personal, group, and political relationships across ethnic, religious, class, national, and racial boundaries. This process includes violence prevention, conflict management. So as I said earlier, slight misunderstanding that arises from lack of our understanding and acceptance of diversity and inclusion brings conflict. So things that have to do with ethnicity, religion, class, nationality, racial boundaries. So the minute we begin to appreciate that humanity comes first before any other thing that our neighbor or our friends are made up, then we can accommodate them and we can live peacefully. So peace building is peaceful coexistence. We have only one earth and we have to live peacefully on this earth. We can't run away. We can't change earth. You can't wake up and decide because I'm a Muslim, I'm going to drive away all the Christians from earth. It's not possible. We are all here and we are humans, we are flesh and blood, and our beliefs are basically in our heads. So you believe what you believe and you practice what you practice, but you do this in such a way that it doesn't make the next person feel like you are trying to push them down or step on their own beliefs. So this is why it's important to go through the diversity and inclusion training. And obviously, you will become a peace builder after you become exposed to the peace training that you would receive from my professional colleagues. So ethics promoter. Who is an ethics promoter? You inspire. You guide. You provide support for responsible conduct. You try to deter and discipline on ethical professional conduct. You promote mutual understanding and provide awareness. You contribute to positive public image of your profession. So you are a humanitarian. In this context, this is your profession. So your conduct makes you a role model because you are a professional in the humanitarian field. After all these trainings, you become an example. So you lead by example. You promote ethics. You promote ethical conduct. So this is what you have to understand. As an ethics promoter, you are the main spotlight. You are a reflection of what you want to see. You cannot say that this is what you want to see around you. For example, I want a Nigeria that is corrupt free and there's no bribery, or there is no discrimination, but then I am the chief host of collecting bribery. So you have to, so it's a situation whereby, you know, you build over time the characteristics that you want to have as a person. You decide for yourself how you want to be seen. And I'm going to show you how you can build your own personal code of conduct. You can have your values as a person. And this is something many schools don't really look upon. They ignore these things. And these are things that you should have from a very young age. I remember when I was very young, I decided to myself that I am going to be a person of truth. Even if someone is going to beat me, I'm going to tell them the truth. Until this day, with all the people I work with, whatever it is, however I feel, is exactly what I'm going to tell you. And it's left for you to decide what you want to do with that information. So, I mean, there are values that you can adopt as a person, and you can make them a part of you. And people will identify you as this person, a person with integrity, a person that always keep to their words, a person that is loyal no matter what. So all of these are examples of the characteristics that you can decide for yourself. And the important part to realize is that ethical conduct is something that can be learned. It's something that we are born with. So when we are very small, from a very, very tender age, we are born with things like sympathy, like empathy. So babies, when they see their mother crying, they cry. And this is not something that someone taught them. This is something they are born with. So we are generally born as good people. And then over time, we interact with bad people, we interact with the world, and then we learn the bad things. But you can consciously decide the things that you want to learn as a person. You can decide to block and refuse to be unethical. You can decide depending on the people in your network, depending on the decisions that you have made from a tender age. So it's not too late for every single person on this platform. And when you have your characteristics and people know you with this thing, with this unique characteristics, believe me, this is what is going to make you a unique person that they respect. That is why you hear people call people, they refer to certain people as this person is highly principled. So this is that. So I'm going to move to the next slide. So you're going to become advocates against substance use and abuse. So you are going to be in a position to provide the necessary support system for individuals recovering from eating disorders, drug and alcohol issues, and other behavioral issues. So basically what you're doing here is that you are going to be the support system of your friends, of your family, of your community. You are going to be the shoulder they can lean on. You are going to be the person to tell your best friend that, look, their best friend that is on the verge of committing suicide, that no, you can't do this. And you are going to convince her that she can't do this. You are going to convince your friend that has lost all his money. Excuse me. You are going to convince your friend that has lost all his money or that is finding it difficult to get a job, to not take drugs, you are going to help that your friend that is a substance abuser, that is constantly taking codeine or whatever, you are going to stand up and you're going to make sure they get the help they need. You are going to advocate against it. You are going to tell the younger generation why they must not give in to peer pressure as to why and why they cannot take drugs, why they can never start taking drugs, even if it's just a little sip. And you are going to ensure all of this within your circle. And as you grow, as you become better advocates, you are going to grow beyond your circle. You are going to learn with time, with practice, the advocacy. And when you do that, you will be in a position to take it out there. So, but the most important thing, obviously, is to learn the skill. So that is what it is. So you are also a human rights defender. So you are the whistleblower, basically, because you are the ethical person. So you would report violence. You will speak up. If you feel there is something in your environment that is wrong, you are going to say it to the person, this is not good. And you are going to advise and recommend how they can handle the situation. If, for example, your two neighbors are fighting, you are not in a position to just sit down and keep watching and filming with your phones. You are going to ensure that you have a list of the things that you're going to do in your communities, the things you have done in your communities. So if you have mediated a conflict that could have resulted in violence, you're going to write this down and you're going to send it to us. We want to see what you're doing. You're going to keep a journal. You're going to keep a record of your activities within your community because you are a human rights defender. With violence comes harm, comes abuse, comes maltreatment, and violence leads to wars. So you, as a human rights defender, you do not want to see people lose their lives. So you are going to make sure you're in a position to mediate, to negotiate, to resolve conflict. You are going to uphold human rights laws. You are not going to be an abuser. You are not going to be a person that supports abuse. So if, for example, you know of a sexual exploitation or human trafficking act happening around you, you are going to speak up. You are not going to turn a blind eye and say nothing about it because it's not your business. It is your business. We are making it your business. It's your problem because we're humans. So you are going to speak up. You are going to tell us and we are going to support you. So you are going to uphold human rights laws. You are going to promote diversity and inclusion. So in everything that you're doing, I keep emphasizing the importance of diversity and inclusion. And it is in the heart of a Billion Doors initiative, and it is in the heart of the United Nations human rights laws. It is in the heart of international human rights laws. It is the heart of almost everything, Because when you look at the SDGs, for example, there are 17 in number, but there is nothing specifically called diversity and inclusion, because all of the 17 goals include diversity and inclusion. All of them, every single one of them. And non-discrimination is at the heart of the design of the SDGs. Non-discrimination. So everything we are doing, we are looking at and we are accommodating people with disabilities, people of different age groups, people of different mental health, people on different emotional skills. We are accommodating everyone. We are giving everyone a chance. So as a human rights defender, you are leaving no single person behind. So even if it's your enemy that is at a risk of abuse or trafficking or sexual exploitation, you are going to speak out, because humanity is above your personal relationship with whoever it is. Your mission is to defend humanity, so that in the end, we can all live peacefully and the human race can be protected. Because lack of activities such as this, imagine if we didn't have the United Nations. Imagine what would happen to the world. Because the United Nations, what it does is that it actually creates these conventions, these human rights laws. So they come as a series of conventions, different types of conventions on refugees, on immigrants, on women, on children, on so many things. And when it does this, it gets opinions from different parts of the world. So countries like the United Kingdom will send a delegation to the UN during dialogue of formulation of a convention. And then in this process, the United Kingdom will send someone, the United States will send someone, Africa, Somalia will send someone, Uganda will send someone from different parts. If, for example, let's say we are working on the Child's Rights Convention, on the formulation of the Child's Rights Convention, so they send delegation. So when this delegation come in one place, they give their opinion as to what they feel should be included in the laws. And when they do this, it will be negotiated for years and years. For example, the Convention on Rights of the Child, it took over 10 years for all the parties, all the state parties to agree. So once all the parties agree, when I say parties, I mean the countries. When I say state parties, I mean the countries. When they all agree as to the content of the convention being discussed, then they ratify it. They come together by ratifying it. They sign it. And when they sign it, it becomes a binding document for them. It becomes an international law. And they take this back home to their countries and they design their local laws with reference to this convention. So when people do things, when a country does something wrong, including including abuse or maltreatment or violence or some kind of mass murder or something of that nature, this is This is breaking international laws. This is breaking international laws. And this is a problem because the International Criminal Court can summon a country to come and explain and defend itself. And these laws apply to every single person. So this is how the United Nations affects you. This is how all the conventions affect you as a person. So for example, you have a country like Saudi Arabia that just recently approved that women can drive, they can have a job, they are an identity on their own. And this is because of the pressure, obviously, that was put on to them by activists. And obviously they got the support of the United Nations because what? In the United Nations human rights laws, there is something called gender equality. So that is that. You will learn a lot about human rights during the diversity and inclusion course that I will be taking you. You will learn about diversity and inclusion, non-discrimination, and you will learn about the 19 conventions of the United Nations. So we are coming to the end. So how exactly do you become an advocate? How do you become an advocate? So you will become an advocate by talking, by singing, and you will do this without pressure, through radio, through TV, through the social media. You will talk about the things you feel need attention. You will talk about the things you feel the people around you shouldn't do. So if, for example, you have 100 followers on Instagram and you're concerned about drug abuse, you can just decide, I am going on Instagram Live and I am going to talk about drug abuse. I am a peace and ethics advocate of a $1 Billion Initiative, and I am going to talk about drug abuse. And you will do this, and you will tell us, and we will support you. So you will do this on radio. As time goes on, you will build the confidence, you will have the skill, you will be in a position to hold debates because it's a skill that you get when you practice. So between yourselves, you can actually debate a topic. Everyone has their own point of view and understanding of various topics. So obviously you can select a topic. For example, you can select ethics and try to brainstorm as to how to end corruption in Nigeria. You will write articles, you will write poems in newspapers, in journals, in books. And we are going to publish this in our newsletters. And you will do this by selecting what you feel you want to talk about. So you become an expert, you make your advocacies within your community, and then when you do this, you have the experience, you have a story to tell. And you can write a very, very comprehensive article as to your experiences in advocacy over, for example, a year or 3 months. Or you can decide on Children's Day that you are going to write an article on child abuse. Or you are going to say a poem on sexual violence. And you will do this, and you will share with us, and we will share with the network, and we're going to make your voice heard. People would know that you are an advocate of the sustainable development goals, and you are on a platform of a network of $1 billion initiative, a network of members from around the world that are supporting you. You will visit, you will go to schools, you will go to orphanage homes, you will go to talk about what you do. You will have a complimentary card. You would brag about who you are, because you are someone, you are an advocate. And it's not a joke to be an advocate, because you have gone through rigorous trainings on human rights laws, and you understand exactly what diversity, inclusion, non-discrimination, zero violence, ethics, and so much. So you have that power. You will write a complimentary card and you carry it around. You carry it as an advocate of peace and ethics on the platform of $1 billion initiative. You will group yourself. You will collaborate with friends. You can pick a topic and go viral, and we will support you. The young must have a voice. And this is a platform to give every single young person a voice, regardless of gender, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of religion. Our priority is humanity. So as an advocate, what can you do and what can you not do? So an advocate, you can listen to the views of other people and concerns. You will help them explore their options and rights without putting pressure. So for example, if there is a conflict or a sexual exploitation, you are in a position to tell them, to tell the victim exactly what they can do, but you cannot pressure them. You cannot speak out without their consent. You can't do this, especially when they are not a minor. You can't force them to do what they don't want to do. So even as a human rights defender, you have to protect human rights of privacy. So this is why the trainings are important, so that you understand exactly your limitations as an advocate, so that you are not overbearing and you do not go beyond limits. You will provide information to help others make decisions. So for example, like I said, if there is a sexual trafficking or some kind of exploitation, you are in a position to tell them exactly what can be done, what is their right, and they are to decide for themselves. So you will help them decide by giving them the information, but you are not in a position to say, this is what you have to do. No. So you help you help to contact relevant people or contact them on the victim's behalf. So basically, again, I'll use sexual abuse as an example. You will contact the relevant people, for example, the Human Rights Commission, the NAPTIP, Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. You can tell us. I mean, we have a network of non-governmental organizations we work with as well. So you are in a position to bring up the problem to a more serious level so that the problem can be solved. So if, for example, accompany you and support you in meetings or appointments. So if, for example, you have a person that is a drug abuser, you can support them. Maybe they are shy, maybe they don't want to get help. You can accompany them, you can come with them to meetings and appointments as an advocate. But like I said, an advocate will not solve problems and make decisions for you. They can only help. So even as advocates, there are limitations. So you cannot solve all the problems, obviously, but you can help by empowering the victim with information, with help by telling and talking on behalf of the victim. Perhaps the victim is not learned, perhaps the victim is voiceless, perhaps the victim does not have access to the kind of people you have access with. So that is what it is. So this is a brief on the rights and protection of human right defenders, right and protections accorded to human right defenders. So as a defender, as a human right defender, you actually have some level of protection. You are protected by international laws, you are protected by the national laws, and this protection is binding on every single human rights defender, as long as whatever they are doing, whatever you are doing is peaceful. As long as it's peaceful. If it is not peaceful, you have a chance, your chances are almost non-existent. So whatever you are doing, you have to ensure that your actions are very peaceful. So I am just giving you a brief to see exactly the laws protecting you, your rights as a human rights defender, because you need this knowledge, because this knowledge will allow you to explore your options. This knowledge will allow you to realize and to see the powers that you have. Human rights activists are some of the most powerful people in the world because they have a lot of support globally. So during this peace and ethics program, I am going to talk about some of these laws, while some of them I'm actually going to provide to you in form of a document for you to keep, to read, to make reference to all the time. And this is going to be obviously in January. This is this part of the program is going to be a very, very comprehensive one, and perhaps it might even come after the peace and ethics program, because I want you to have the human rights defender certification. So it might come after, but whatever it is, I'm going to let you know before the year runs out. So these are your rights, and I'm not going to read all of them because I'm just going to bore you reading them. But it's good to understand that you know, you can seek protection, you know, at the national or international levels. So you have a right to protection. The country needs to protect you if you're a human rights defender. If your life is at risk, for example, for exposing a rape case of a very influential senator or something of that nature, the state is supposed to protect you. And obviously, when cases like that do happen, you have to speak up. You can't keep quiet, because when you keep quiet, then anything can happen to you secretly. So, but when you speak about it, we defend you, we talk about it, we say it to the media, we make sure that nothing happens to you. So, apart from your own roles, obviously in protecting other people, you have laws protecting you as well while you are carrying out your work. So you have a right to meet and assemble peacefully, to make peaceful protest. You have a right to obtain, to seek and receive information relating to human rights, both nationally and internationally. You have a right to develop and discuss new human rights ideas and principles, and to advocate for their acceptance. You have a right to submit criticism and propose improvements, obviously, to existing human rights laws or to structures that are impeding the realization of human rights, the enforcement of human rights laws and the realizations. You have a right to make complaints about official policies and acts relating to human rights. And you have a right to have those laws reviewed. You have a right to offer and provide professional qualified legal assistance or other advice and assistance in defense of human rights. So for those of us that are lawyers, that are seeking to be lawyers, you know, we have this right. You have a right to attend public hearings, proceedings, and trials in order to assess their compliance with national laws and international human rights obligations. So if, for example, there is a situation, a criminal situation or something of that nature, you have a right to be allowed entrance into the hearing as a human rights defender. And whatever happens in the courts, you have a right to write and complain and protest against this. There is a very prominent case of someone, you know, that stabbed someone, you know, and obviously, you know, human rights defenders stood up against capital punishment. So as a human rights defender, you have that right. You have your certification, you have your complimentary card, you have your power, you have the knowledge. You have a right to say, look, I am a certified human rights defender, and I have a right, I know my rights on the international laws and national laws to attend this hearing. You cannot stop me. So, I mean, the laws, your rights are there. And I'm going to make this available to you, obviously, as a document during the program. So let's move on to understand exactly what we're doing. What exactly are we doing in a Billion Doors initiative? Because although I have explained these things, you know, I always like to reinforce my explanations by still going deeper into some of these things. In summary, what we're doing is we are implementing the Sustainable Development Goals. That is it, nothing more, nothing less. For the next 10 years, this is exactly what we're doing. We are human rights defenders, and obviously we are in support of what the UN is doing. So the SDGs as a global goal for humanity is something that we side with. So we are trying to be a part of the organizations, the people that actually will realize the Sustainable Development Goals in 2030. So we are working on goal 16 as a whole, but in relation to this peace and ethics program, we are working with 16.1, but goal 16 C cell, our SDG C cell, includes goal 16 as a whole. So we want to significantly reduce all forms of violence and related deaths everywhere. Goal 16.1. Goal 16.5, we want to substantially reduce bribery and corruption. Yes, and then this is all in relation to this program. And another one relating to this program is goal 16.2, protect children from abuse and violence. Another goal is goal 3.5, to prevent and treat substance abuse. Gender equality, women and girls empowerment. This goal 5 falls under the internship that we are doing and also touches upon goal 16.2 as well. So basically we have 2 projects, well, not 2 precisely, about 3 projects, and they all interact with each other, touching on all areas, some touching on the areas significantly, some touching on the surface. So when we talk about gender equality, women and girls empowerment, we're addressing violence, we're addressing gender equality, we're addressing sexual exploitation, we're addressing discrimination of women and girls and things surrounding it. So in our internship program, we dwell upon those issues that come together to influence goal 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions, because we are of the belief that violence is the root cause of every single thing. Violence in early childhood. So obviously, if as a child, this is completely out of context, but I'm just going to say this. As a mother, when a mother is pregnant with a fetus in her stomach, the brain pathways, the cognitive pathways are beginning to form. And when this is happening, whatever the mother experiences, when she goes through violence, when she goes through stress, and then her brain releases the stress hormones, it affects the development of this neurotic pathways of the child's brain. So if this violence, if this child is exposed to this type of violence in the stomach, and then they come out in reality, and then she is faced with an abusive husband that is very vulgar, that is beating her, that is emotionally, psychologically provoking her, the child is there as well, and they can sense this toxicity. This is called a toxic stress. So this toxic stress is something that impedes normal brain function. So as a child is growing, the pathways, the circuits that were created from inside the stomach, now when they come out in real life, more complex pathways are going to build upon the foundational pathways that were initially created. So if they were initially created when the child was exposed to violence, then imagine that the pathways that are going to build upon these foundational pathways are building upon something that is bad already. So this child, obviously, this neurotic pathways are building now that this child is in physical, is in real life, and this child is being faced with toxic stress, such as shouting, such as screaming, such as violent shaking and moving and all sorts of things. So the pathways being created on top of this existing foundational pathways will be formed in such a way that they will not be normal, and their abnormality will lead to, obviously, by the time the child gets to an age of adolescence, when they begin to be toddlers, when they're 3, when they're 4, and they're beginning to learn their social emotional skills, the foundation, the learning pathways have already been formed on bad foundation. So this makes it very difficult for the child to be normal. This makes it impossible for the child to have the ability to have confidence, to be able to have critical thinking skills, to have problem solving skills. It's going to be much harder for this child to be capable of catching up with another child that has not been exposed to violence. So this child that obviously has been faced with this type of violence already has experienced a mental stress, a permanent mental stress. And the only way to reverse this is by removing the child from that environment and putting the child in therapy. But even when you put the child in therapy, this doesn't mean that the child is actually going to recover from the damages, because these are foundational pathways that have already been created. You cannot replace them. So this is why we are trying to prevent violence from happening, because solving the consequences of the impact of violence is much harder than preventing violence itself. So when this child obviously is has already formed this difficulty in learning, and this child has already been exposed to violence and things like that, studies have proven that violence is usually transmitted. So because of this abnormality in mental health, this child becomes eventually has a tendency of becoming a criminal. This child has a tendency of becoming a violent individual himself. So this child has a tendency of becoming a terrorist because of neglect. So violence, doesn't have to be beating or shouting or corporal punishment. There is the violence of neglect, where the parents do not respond. So if a baby is crying, for example, as a parent or as a caregiver, you are supposed to respond by soothing them. When a child is playing, cooing, making all the funny sounds as a little baby, you are supposed to respond, because that responsiveness, it is what makes them begin to develop their social emotional learning skills. So this is a whole very complex part of child's protection, but I'm just giving you this information so that you understand precisely during the internship, the format that we are the channel, the roadmap, the protocol we are using in addressing the root cause of insecurity, kidnapping, and other social vices around us. So I'm just going to the next slide, and yeah, this is the end of the slide. Okay, so obviously your roles as an SDG advocate, as an advocate of $1 Billion Initiative, by the time you receive all your trainings, is obviously to resolve conflict, to promote peace, to prevent and refuse and treat substance abuse, to become the whistleblower of corrupt practices, to refuse bribery, to talk to the abuser about the consequences of violence, if possible, convince them to stop, to become an ambassador of diversity and inclusion through your actions, to report discrimination or other forms of abuse and maltreatment. So what I mean by reporting discrimination, obviously, is to call the attention of the person doing this act and letting them know that this is absolutely wrong. So we want a world where people are going to be judged based on their character, like Martin Luther King actually wanted for Black people in America. A world where people are judged based on their character, not on their color, their ethnicity, their religion, their age, their race, but based on merit, based on credit. So, and the only way we can do this is to promote this. So non-discrimination is equals to diversity and inclusion. Because another person is disabled doesn't make them any lesser than you. Another person is disabled doesn't mean that you do not want to include them in your activities. So I think this is the end of this induction program, and I'm going to leave the floor open for questions. If you want to ask questions, please, now is the time. Thank you so much for listening and for participating. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope I was very clear. Thank you. Any comments, any questions? I mean, this is the time to interact, you know, to get to know yourselves.
Good evening, Your Excellency.
Good evening.
Good evening, other members of the Billion Doors Initiative, particularly those of us that started and stayed till this time. Your Excellencies, good evening. I want to most sincerely thank the chairperson for a good presentation, and believe me sincerely, you asked the question if you were clear. You are very, very clear. All the points you raised, all the issues, all the discussions, all are clear to a very large extent, I believe. If this were to be a hall, I believe would have stood up and give you a round, of applause, a standing ovation, I mean.
Oh.
So thank you so much, most sincerely, for this opportunity. The intention is worthwhile, the explanations are clear, and in fact, I believe most the ambassadors, just like myself, I believe we've learned a lot. This has really broadened our horizon. Issues relating to violence, relating to peace, relating to substance abuse, etc., etc. There are some of the things you said and explained and really impressed me and really make me think, oh, wow, this has been existing, I didn't know. I know with my little knowledge that we have laws protecting human rights defenders from state level. We have state laws, we have national laws, we have sub-regional conventions like ECOWAS, and we have regional conventions and protocol like that of AU. And we know that the UN, as the global body, as the biggest global body, has a lot of conventions, articles, and resolutions that actually protect human rights defenders and promote peace and unity and prevent wars and conflicts. So I believe with all this on ground and with $1 billion as our window or our door, let me say, that to lead us to achieving these humanitarian activities, I believe we can go far. One thing I would like to maybe plead maybe with my fellow ambassadors is that let's try as much as possible to be committed. As High Excellency have explained, all these are all how to put it, summarized in humanitarian activity. And humanitarian activity, you need time, you need dedication, you need commitment, and you need to show yourself that you are an ambassador of what you are preaching or what you are advocating. You don't have to do yourself, you try as much as possible to involve yourself in violence, whether it's against children or women or whatever. Then don't abuse substances and then try to maintain peace yourself. Definitely, a human being, sometimes people may say something, so they may act some way that they kind of anger you. But as an ambassador of $1 billion initiative and a peacemaker, human rights defender, try to see how you do your best to control your emotions. I believe with this and other things based on the materials High Excellency the chairperson promised to share with us, I believe it will kind of redefine some of us, especially in the way we act when we're in public places. I believe, just as she said, if you have your certification, if you have your complementary cards, and anywhere you're going, that will give you more confidence. And I believe that will kind of give you a kind of constant reminder, serve as a constant reminder for you wherever you are to act in the best way possible so that you be seen as a good ambassador of the London's initiative and the UN in general as a global ambassador. Sure. So once again, I want to thank you most sincerely, Your Excellency, the chairperson, for this opportunity, for this door you've given us, for this opportunity to the London's initiative. I'm sincerely grateful, and I've been looking for something like this, and alhamdulillah, God has led me to this, and I believe with this I can do a lot in my goal and objective of serving humanity through $1 billion initiative. Thank you most sincerely. Thank you, my fellow ambassadors, Your Excellencies.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Thank you very much for your kind words, your encouraging words. And I look forward to so many bright things together with everyone, including yourself and all our new members and our potential new members. I look forward to a united group of people that share the same ideas. And thank you. I would want to use this opportunity to actually thank you, Your Excellency, Zachary Gimba Hassan, for your hard work, your dedication, and your resilience. You know, it's not easy. It's very difficult. Not many of us are able to keep up with all the meetings and all the deadlines and all the stress that comes with this humanitarian work, but you are an example. Thank you so much, and God bless you. Thank you. I'm seeing comments from Wahib Bashir.
Thank you, Your Excellency.
You're welcome. I'm seeing comments from Mr. Mohahib Bashir. Nuhu, good evening. I can't hear anything. from Habiba Isiaka. Well done, your presentation was beautiful. Thank you so much, Miss Habiba. Thank you. I appreciate that. Miss Your Excellency Fatima Aminu, thank you. Job well done, Your Excellency. Thank you. Thank you so much. Mariam Abdurrahman, well done, Ma. Thank you. Thank you so very much. I appreciate every single comment and compliment. Uh, if we don't have any comments, we can end the meeting. If there's anyone that wants to say anything or ask a question, we have 5 minutes to go so that everyone can finally rest for today.
Yeah, Chairperson.
Your Excellency.
Let me buttress some of the things that His Excellency Zachary Gimba said, and yourself likewise. It's $1 billion to everything.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we are for everyone from all spheres of life. We would act as ambassadors. You know, we'll go extra miles to reaching out to persons, even in the most remote areas. Yes, and like you mentioned, citizens' participation would be very paramount. You know, in as advocates, advocates for peace. You know, and human rights, acting as human rights defenders. So, of course, I know you would be able to give back knowledge with through lectures, seminars, workshops. You know, teaching people morals and norms, and you know, all this would be geared to changing mindsets. You know, for a better generation to come. So it's great achievement, and I also want to use this opportunity to congratulate the inductees ceremony. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Thank you. Thank you very much for your very encouraging words and your very honest opinion. Thank you so much,
Thank
as
you.
always. Okay, so this brings us to the end of the uh, induction program. If we don't have any more comments or questions, I would say good night, and you watch out for the new members for dates as to when you are going to start your trainings. You will have specific dates to begin your training because you're going to become advocates. So you are going to watch out on this, and obviously we will take it from there. So thank you so much for coming here today, for making out time to be here with us. Remain blessed. Good night, everyone. Good night.
Have a nice night.
Good night.
Have a nice day.
Good night, Your
Bye.
Excellencies. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.